A 17-year-old male jumped off of a building in a suicide attempt and severely broke his left arm with the bone exposed. Despite this severe wound, the boy was punched, slammed against walls, and rolled in the dirt. He was beaten so severely that he forgot who he was and he became unconscious. These beatings continued for 2 weeks before he was finally given medical treatment.
If this clip of sworn U.S. congressional testimony got your attention, then I'm hoping you'll hear me out, because unfortunately, there's plenty more where that came from.
A 16-year-old boy having trouble breathing and walking was tortured and humiliated for days. One staff told the boy that he deserved an Academy Award for faking it. He died later that day. An autopsy report for this boy showed 71 contusions and abrasions from head to toe. Another 16-year-old boy with asthma was placed in a face-down restraint by 3 staff members before he died. Another boy was restrained more than 250 times, including 2 times for more than 12 hours each. A 12-year-old boy weighing 87 pounds was placed in a face-down restraint with a staff lying on top of him until he died. And a staffer referred to as the drill instructor trained his pit bull to bite people in the crotch on command. A 17-year-old boy experienced this painful abuse. Other kids in these and other programs also experienced disturbing abuse. For example, boys at one boot camp were required to stand with bags over their head and a hangman's noose around their neck. The rope on this noose was tightened to simulate a hanging. The individual responsible for this told officers that this was an appropriate form of discipline. Another boy was forced to lie face down on a red anthill and was not allowed to brush the ants off of his face or his body. In a separate incident, this boy was required to lie on his stomach for 10 hours. He was only allowed to get up to vomit, and then he was required to clean up his vomit before he got down on the ground again.
My name is Marty Gottesfeld, and I have a way for you to secure funding to fight child abuse in your nation and all over the world. You can help whether you are an attorney or if you can translate this message into another language, or by simply spreading the word on social media and elsewhere, by sharing this video with a personal message asking for others to share it as well. I'm asking legal professionals from all over the world to file lawsuits in their jurisdictions on my behalf and to donate my share of the proceeds to reputable local organizations which fight child abuse. If the Associated Press or Reuters operate in your nation, then there may be a claim to pursue in your jurisdiction. Here is some background. In 2013, I joined a surprisingly small number of people to learn about a billion-dollar operation called the troubled teen industry. According to the American Bar Association, the industry prospers on promises to modify troublesome behaviors and to make bad kids good. Its financial sustainability is assured by frequent deceptive advertising on the Internet that market facilities as offering an array of mental health and educational services that are often not available or provided by unqualified staff. The American Bar Association also noted that, despite egregious abuses, these facilities continue to grow in number and size. When the United States Congress investigated this industry, here is some more of what was found.
These allegations range from neglect to torture, a word I do not use lightly.
We identified thousands of reported cases of death and abuse at these programs. Sources of these allegations include HHS, state agencies, the Internet, and pending and closed civil and criminal lawsuits. Allegations include physical, emotional, and mental abuse. Examples of abuse include youth being forced to eat their own vomit, denied adequate food, being forced to lie in urine or feces, being kicked, beaten, and thrown to the ground, and being forced to use a toothbrush to clean a toilet, and then forced to use that toothbrush on their teeth. Many of these kids died slowly while program management and staff continued to believe that they were faking it. It seems the only way staff could be convinced that these kids weren't faking it was when they stopped breathing or had no pulse. For example, in one case, a 16-year-old male exhibited significant signs of distress for nearly 3 weeks, including the loss of bodily functions. In 30 days, this 5-foot 10-inch boy dropped from 131 pounds to 108 pounds. Despite these warning signs, he was forced to continue hiking. There was no emergency response until he collapsed and stopped breathing. Unfortunately, at this point, it was too late.
From your investigation of these 10 deaths at these facilities, can you comment as to whether or not these deaths at these facilities appear to have been fully investigated?
Reports of mistreatment, abuse, and neglect are widespread. There were concerns expressed regarding 85 programs located in 23 states and in several foreign countries. Facilities are not maintaining health and safety standards, and youth are experiencing medical neglect and educational deprivation. Incidents of physical and sexual abuse have occurred that were never reported by youth due to threatening program environments or the absence of universal access to protection and advocacy hotlines. Treatment is violating human rights. In the guise of behavior modification, youth are required to earn their basic human rights to privacy, dignity, and contact with family members. Youth are being deprived of food, sleep, and shelter. They are forced to endure stress positions, humiliation, and intentionally fear-inducing encounters. Programs are also using cruel and dangerous thought reform techniques. The use of seclusion and restraint is highly, grossly inappropriate.
What are the police doing about this? I mean, deaths are pretty serious, and nobody's taking any action?
Well, I can just answer this. For the 10 cases, we did look at police reports. There were extensive investigations done in most of the cases. And again, it ranged from only one person is serving time today from case study number 6 for manslaughter and I believe another charges, concurrent 6- and 5-year sentences. Everyone else, as I mentioned, that either was prosecuted and or pled, either got community service or time served or some lesser charge. So there was really no teeth behind the investigation. Doesn't mean they weren't good investigations. We didn't really evaluate the quality of the investigations, but there was really no action on the criminal side here.
This just boggles my mind. I can't even imagine.
I think that in some of the cases, I would define it as torture, what we saw.
I just want to make sure you weren't casually using the term. You're using it based upon the case studies that you examined.
Not just the case studies. Other kids in these programs had the same thing done to them.
They did their due diligence. They looked at all the, they asked the right questions, and yet they ended up with, unfortunately, their children dying.
What concern I have is if there's no, apparently, law enforcement just doesn't get involved in these things. So if you can have a bad actor, and it seems like whatever field you're in, you can find bad actors. We could find doctors that have had real problems in their lives. So I think it seems like people just gravitate to wherever they can do the bad things they want to do. And my concern is that if there is an incident such as these where deaths occur and abuse, and there is some attention brought to them, and maybe there is some slight action taken as we've seen here, it might shut them down. They might move to another state and start all over again, and nobody has any way of knowing the problem. So that's something I think that we really need to look at.
I can't think of testimony that we've received in this committee that has caused a greater sense of anger or sorrow than what we just heard this morning. In 2003, I urged then Attorney General John Ashcroft to begin an immediate investigation into reports of child abuse at private residential treatment programs. The Attorney General refused, as did his successor, Alberto Gonzalez. I also then wrote Secretary of State Colin Powell asking him to investigate the treatment of children in facilities located overseas, but serving American children and operated by U.S. companies. Secretary Powell's response was insufficient.
I've been chasing these people for 25 years, and not much has changed, tragically. And a lot of children have been chewed up in the system, permanently scarred, permanently damaged, and in some tragic cases killed. I've asked the Treasury Department to take a look at them. I asked the State Department to take a look at them. I asked the Justice Department to take a look at them.
Now, isn't this the type of story that the Associated Press and Reuters should be working hard to expose? Instead, however, little has changed since 2007, when Congressman Miller remarked,
This nightmare has remained an open secret for years.
Further, what if AP and Reuters were disseminating defamatory, libelous, and slanderous misinformation which protects this industry instead of putting the true horror of these human rights violations in front of millions of readers worldwide and holding the U.S. government accountable for its deliberate indifference? And what if this were a straightforward case to prove it? Well, Rolling Stone and others call me the hacker who cared too much for my crusade to save these children. But one would probably never know or guess that from what AP and Reuters say about me. And recently, they both went way too far. Now I'm hoping that attorneys from across the globe will help set the record straight, get the truth out, and help recover damages that will be used to fight child abuse all around the world. Here are the vital details. Thanks for bearing with me. As anyone can read in Rolling Stone, I defended the life of a teenage girl named Justina Pelletier when she was tortured, crippled, and nearly killed at Boston Children's Hospital. Here is Justina's father on one of our public TV stations.
She went from a healthy as could be young lady to a person now in a wheelchair, pretty much paralyzed below the hips, almost no physical strength above the hips. She has been totally medically abused. You know, she had tachycardia, medically diagnosed, was on metoprolol for that. Since she's been at Boston Children's through DCF custody, she's been off that, so she's had a heart rate of anywhere from 100 to 152, medically verified. Number two, she had a cecostomy tube placed into her colon so she can go to the bathroom for neuropathy of the colon. And when you're a mitochondrial patient, you're more sensitive to your nerves, kind of like somebody with fibromyalgia. So she was taking Lyrica to deaden the nerve pain. So she's been in severe pain nonstop, 24 hours a day for 13 months.
That interview aired just before I knocked Boston Children's Hospital off the internet during a major online fundraiser, standing up for Justina and defending her life without violence in a way that few others could. Of course, I hurt nobody, and a federal jury in the U.S., which included a nurse from an area hospital, refused to find that an internet outage even potentially impacted the care of any patients. On top of that, it was Boston Children's which actually took most of its own systems offline during the protest. As Nate Raymond from Reuters and Alanna, Durkin, Richer from the Associated Press each heard BCH staff admit in the courtroom. Yet even after the jury returned this verdict, and even though AP and Reuters each heard me cite the jury's finding and rebut this ridiculous criminal allegation that somehow I had put children's lives in danger, both AP and Reuters still printed this demonstrably false assertion made after the jury's decision by federal prosecutor David Diadio without even mentioning that I had contested it, let alone the jury's verdict. Nor did they mention Justina's pain and suffering, which I also asserted, or the troubled teen industry. Now, based on this, if I would have an actionable claim against AP, Reuters, or the U.S. Department of Justice for slander, libel, or defamation, your jurisdiction, please contact my team on social media, and we'll start sending you more documents showing that AP did not have permission to use my name or likeness, that its reporter likely acted with malice aforethought, and more. To be clear, attorneys can keep their fair share of any proceeds, as long as mine will be donated to a reputable local charity that actively fights child abuse.